Okay, we're recording. All right, we're ready? Okay, hello Taylor County and 48th District. I'm Alex Renneman from Unleashed Tigert, and we are here tonight for kind of a first. We're doing, instead of individual election videos, we're having an election panel discussion with the delegates running for the 48th District of the House Delegates of West Virginia. And made some questions, why are we doing it this way? Well, the obvious one, the easy one that everybody kind of thought, oh, COVID, right? COVID's changed everything in our world, and certainly no different here in elections, and the individual one-on-one shaking hands, those things that seem like so long ago are being replaced with these things, at least for now and for a certain period of time. And so we felt this was a good format to do this in. Additionally, many of you have asked us about a live engagement. So if you're tuning into this live, great, hop in, toss some questions. If you're watching this recorded, that's great too. Y'all are welcome. That's part and parcel to all of this. However you can access this information, we're happy to provide it for you. Some of you watching this or listening to this may not know who I am or who Unleashed Tigert is. You may know some of the faces that are on the screen today, but you may not know who we are. And so really quickly, we are a nonprofit based in Grafton, West Virginia. And we have 6 pillars that drive the focus of our business and our priorities. And one of them, which is pertinent to tonight, is all around governance and transparency and good governance. And so we started this initiative a decade ago in interviewing candidates for local and statewide offices to try to have a better experience for the voters to be able to understand who their candidates are, and frankly, a better platform for candidates to reach out. Not that all the other methods that are used are great, but we found that this was an area we could fill a gap in, and we found over the years it's been valuable to the community. We've invited all of the candidates for the 48th District, and that's a big district, the way it's the multi candidate or the multi-office thing. So not all of them were able to join us, but we did make that open to everyone and tried to accommodate everybody's schedules into getting the right piece. So you see the candidates today that are here. No one was left out purposely. Also, just from a format perspective, again, if you have a question, if you're watching this live, pop on with a question. We have Heather, who's behind the Unleashed Tigert logo, who will be taking those questions and making sure we get them out to the candidates. They are random pairings in terms of how we ask our questions. It's not going to necessarily be a roundtable format where everybody gets asked the same question. It's also not going to be a dogfight or anything childish that we typically see on the national level. Unfortunately, we see it up there. We're not going to see it here. The class of the individuals you see in front of you are going to bring their best character, and we're going to have a great conversation about how we can help West Virginia move forward. So with that said, I think that's let's do this. Yeah. All right. So let's start with question 1. We'll get a little ramp up here. And I've got in this group, I'm asking Ben and Rob. You're in this group, and the question really is, with this multi-member district, just help people who don't understand. You see all these people, they'll have their ballots. How does this multi-member district work, and what's your advice to constituents as they're going in to vote in this district? And even you want to follow up your feelings on these multi-member districts and how that works.
I guess I'll go first. Alex, Heather, thank you for launching this, and thanks for having this. I think we're all excited here. For the last time in Harrison County and part of Taylor here in the 48th District, this is the last time you'll be able to vote for 4 of us. 4 of 5 of us currently on the screen, but I think there's 10 people running now. This election looks a little different because absentee ballots are going to be nearly half the voters, not only in Harrison County, but in Grafton as well, and all across the state. I think it's important that us as candidates do these Zoom meetings and make sure that everybody is involved and everybody knows all resources out. Today is National Voter Registration Day, so my plug is visit govotewv.com and make sure you are registered, you're in the correct address, so that come election day, or you can get an absentee ballot request through the online portal. Make sure you get involved, and thank you for watching this, whether it's live or recorded.
Great. Rob, you got any comment on that? Oh, you're muted. These are the Zoom days, guys. This is 2020.
Yeah.
We've all had these
Okay.
experiences.
Am I
Hey,
muted
there
now,
he is.
Alex?
We can hear you.
All right. Okay. Well, one of the things I just like to add to Ben is like he said about the fact that we'll be going to single member districts here after 2022. But I think having multi-member districts allows people from all parts of the county to be represented. I think that's a big thing. People that have a representative from in their neighborhood or in their town, I think it makes them feel a little bit closer to what's going on. I think that helps out in that aspect.
Great. Okay. And as you'll see, we're adding a couple other folks that are rolling into this. Delegate Hamrick, thank you for joining us. And I think we also have Richard Iquena who's coming on as well. So we'll pick right up where we were. This next question is to Clay and Ryan and Laura, and it's again we're kind of getting that start going, right? It's over this whole COVID experience, what's a hobby, an interest, something you've learned along the way that you can at least have some gratitude for COVID. Again, I'm not making light of something that's done major economic and social and life damage to our world, but what's something that you've made some lemonade out of COVID?
I'll go ahead and take that. I had my 3 kids home, and my son is away at school, and he was not supposed to be home for 5.5 months. And that was a treat. It was also, a 21-year-old young man at home after being away at college is a little bit trying, honestly, for a mom. But it was wonderful to have him home, and both of my daughters, they were also home. And so we had that extra family time that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
I learned to play ukulele, and my wife and I watched all of the Marvel movies, so took advantage of that.
There you go. Awesome. Clay, you're muted. Yep.
Yeah, I hit the button. It just didn't roll through. Thank you. For me, Alex, it was a couple of things. First, I actually, like Laura, also got to have my college-age daughter come home. She was in an internship in Disney, so she was able to come home and spend a lot of time with her brothers and sisters. We spent a lot of time out visiting around the state of West Virginia. With my job, I get to see a lot of it, and I've shared with them over the years. But just being out hiking, being able to social distance and sit just back to nature and enjoy the beauty of West Virginia.
Great. Awesome. Well, that sounds good. So I think we've got the full complement tonight. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. So we'll continue going. I will pause for just a minute and say we are running this in a format. So the folks that have just jumped on, we're asking questions along in a theme, and you'll be a grouping that will be in that theme. There'll be a couple questions that'll be within that theme, and you're welcome to answer to the question you're asked. And if you have some follow-up that you really want to get in on the other questions, you're certainly welcome to let us know at the end of the grouping's answers. So, all right, I'm glad you're here. Okay, so those were kind of the on-ramps, right? So now let's get talking. I mean, we've mentioned COVID. There's no avoiding it any way, shape, or form. And right. I think where I'd like to go in this question is going to be for Josh, Ryan, Laura, and Richard. So if you all can have your ears on this one, from a COVID economics perspective, again, COVID has impacted us in so many ways, and economics is one of those. But I want to flip that around just a bit and say, as a state of West Virginia, and certainly in your district, in the 48th district, what opportunities can we see in West Virginia to take advantage of? I don't mean take advantage necessarily in that way, but take advantage of the opportunities that are presented in the post-COVID world. And so I use examples. You hear people, some of our constituents are talking about marijuana. Maybe it's time to legalize marijuana. Other opportunities that are out there where West Virginia might be able to make some forward movement during this COVID COVID event and the following. So I'll open that up to Josh, Ryan, Laura, and Richard.
So I think there are a lot of ways we can go. Cannabis is certainly one that I think we should pursue either way, but specifically coming from COVID, I think that we can really have a good start towards really focusing on tourism as an economic driver. I was speaking to someone last night who was talking about the rivers and trying to get entry points for boats and bringing in mountain bikers. Harrison County has one state park, Watersmith. Taylor County has Tiger Lake. And I really think that we should invest money to make these more attractive to bring in people from outside of our state who maybe are still leery of traveling. Without a vaccine, I think we're expecting things to be in this new normal for probably through next spring or summer. And so I think we can really capitalize that on bringing people to our state and getting them to realize how fantastic it is here.
Anyone else in that group? Josh, Laura, Richard? Oh, Richard, yeah, go ahead and unmute.
One of the things that was a little disturbing is the last legislative session, they only appropriated $1 million for the COVID-19 pandemic. And that just shows that really the legislature was not that involved. And therefore, I think that the governor took the reins because the legislature kind of like handed it off to him. And I felt like the legislature would have probably had a better idea about how to go about it and tried to put some input on some of the money that would have been spent for the preparation of the pandemic. And I just feel like that we were a little bit behind on our response in the legislature to the pandemic. And we're still a little bit behind because we just seem to be switching motors. And a part about the marijuana, and from what I've read in some of the other states, the profit margin has not been as great as they're projecting in a lot of the states. And it's really been a tough rollout because of the banking situation and also setting up everything that we need to have set up before we roll out the medical marijuana. And I think that there's a group of people that will, it'll definitely affect, and I hope that they do it the right way when they do roll out the medical marijuana.
Okay, sure. Anyone else?
So look, guys, I think post-COVID, for sure, we just have to be careful as a state. There's no way. Everybody has to be careful. We got to wear masks. We have to do things the right way, as us West Virginians know how to do. But as for post-COVID, I think that basically part of how we're going to move forward from this is how we come together as a state and move forward from this. If we all just go one way or another and we don't come together as a state, then we're not going to move forward from this. Let's all wear our masks. Let's do things appropriately. We can reevaluate the situation when it comes time, see where we're at and what we need to do to move West Virginia forward.
I'd like to go ahead and add in, I think as far as an economic opportunity and, the seriousness of COVID has affected my family personally, and we survived. So we made it through, but so I don't mean to dismiss that in saying opportunity, but the economic opportunity we've seen, forgive the truck that's going by, we've seen how the entrepreneurship has come about. DoorDash, for example, where my oldest daughter is in school, her roommate, just says, I'm going to go ahead and do a DoorDash, and they're making a little bit of money here and there. And I think that's happening around our community, as well as, having the delivery of goods, whether it's groceries or, items from, the local pharmacy, whatever it is. So we've seen that economic opportunity open up, but I'm going to go ahead and just get this right out of the bag. I think that this is the ample time to see where we need to have something like education savings accounts, because education has been affected. We've got parents that needed to have some stability and to have that, regular schedule. And now they're looking at the school calendar and they're wondering what's going to happen. And if they had that money that would be allotted for their child, then they would have the opportunity to choose another system instead of just choosing to stay within a system that really isn't working for them right now.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Alex, I'd like to add something.
Sure.
We talked about waiting, and I understand that, but I don't think that's the best for the state of West Virginia. I mean, right now, there are opportunities of manufacturing jobs and companies that are wanting to reshore back to the United States. We have a budding aerospace industry here in the region, and I think we have the ability to capitalize on that and make sure that when these jobs do reshore and these manufacturing jobs do come back, that West Virginia is positioned well. And I see some of that through some of our legislators and our sitting legislators taking that initiative. But I think we need to be able to make sure that we focus on the jobs, and that when they come back to the United States, and they will, and you can see that money starting to flow, that West Virginia is well positioned to make sure that we have jobs for our citizens.
Perfect. So I know a couple of you already mentioned about the preparedness, and so I'll go to that. The next group, Clay, Ben, Rob, and Danny, just from a standpoint of preparedness. Now we can certainly cry over spilled milk, and there's a matter of reason that we should look and assess how we responded as a government, as a state. And there's no mincing about that. We need to do that. But I want to look forward a little bit. What should we be doing now from a preparedness standpoint? It's not over. We're not through it. Doesn't mean there's not going to be another something like that. So from a state legislator perspective, what are you planning to do, or what are your strategies around how we are more prepared in the future? Because everybody got caught with their hand in the cookie jar or their pants down, or whatever analogy you want to use when this thing hit.
Alex, I'll take that. I think you have realized from a small business perspective that many small businesses are struggling. I was encouraged by the governor's $5,000 grant out of the $1.25 billion of CARES Act money from Washington. But $5,000 goes a long way for maybe a small business. But when you have many employees on the payroll, let's just say 5 to 10, you're still struggling to make things to work in your businesses. Number two, we had $1.25 billion sitting in a bank account just 3 months ago. We've only spent, we still have $1 billion in the bank. We need to make sure, collectively as candidates, and I know everybody on here is involved, and I know probably everybody on here has a contact through to either, with Tim Miley as our minority leader helping out a bunch. We also have contacts in the governor's office to make sure that whether it's Ryan in a classroom, or whether it's Clay in the field trying to keep employees, or we need to make sure that people who need protective gear, whether that be in a hospital or whether that be in a classroom, to make sure those are available for people. And it's federally mandated that we spend that $1 billion. I believe the governor's office is on the right track, but that money needs to be coming out quicker. And as legislators today and the day after the election, I think all of us, win or lose, will be pushing to make sure that those monies are spent to make sure that our economy, that our health and safety are met. And I think it's everybody watching here. We may not know all the needs. Please be vocal, whether it's a sitting legislator or not. I think we can all work together at the end of the day in a nonpartisan way to make sure people are safe, and to make sure we're trying to keep and attract and retain and bring in new jobs. But the current jobs are the most important to make sure that we're maintaining, especially our small businesses here in West Virginia.
Well, I'll have to agree with what Ben has to say there. But I'd also like to add that I think we should secure some funding and put it in locations regionally so that it's easily accessible for some PPE, possibly for schools, nurse or hospitals, whatever it may be. But just the fact that it can get there sooner instead of later, as we have seen in the past because of the shortages. And I don't think it's a big thing to keep those things on hand, whatever it may be, masks or whatever it is. But I think we need to make sure that happens.
And I think those are a lot of great points, Ben and Rob. And again, I think additionally, I think being able to make sure that we have the ability to move through procurement quickly in emergency situations. So whether that's a change to procurement laws after a declaration, I mean, obviously, and when there's an emergency, whether it's a FEMA flood or a pandemic, we need to be able to move quickly to secure the resources so that our citizens are taken care of. So I think as a policymaker, one of the things that I would want to make sure is that we have, and I know the legislature has already done some, but to make sure we have those emergency procurement procedures in place so that we can get to the help to the citizens of West Virginia quickly.
And I'll just add to that, I do agree with everything everybody said so far. But as to add to that, it's sort of an ever-changing environment. And, you know, we learned a lot from the past flooding that we recently had in West Virginia, and we've changed a lot of things with emergency preparedness for that. And I think for COVID, there's a lot of additional things to learn there and more ways we can be prepared. I mean, we're obviously not only us that are incumbents. I think probably everybody here has heard from members of the community the issues with Workforce West Virginia with the unemployment compensation. I know people that are still waiting on a call back that were promised a call back 2 weeks later, that it's been almost 4 months now and they've never been able to contact anybody. So luckily in the legislature, we've been able to, send emails to certain people in workforce, and most of those people we're getting followed up with eventually, but we obviously have to do an overhaul there for that system for future problems that could resemble this COVID pandemic. But those are definitely the things that we need to be prepared for. With regards to the previous question, where we mentioned the legislature putting in $1 million in the budget for the COVID response, that was a very, in my opinion, it was a very proactive measure. At that point, by the end of session, nobody really realized the impact that this virus was going to have in our communities. And I think at that time we were listening to what other states were doing. I think at that point, one other state, California, had put some money forward. But other than that, I think we were the second one to put any funds forward for preparedness. So we definitely just have to be ready in case something similar to this does happen again.
Perfect. All right, guys. We are almost at the halfway point. You guys are doing fantastic. Thank you for all those that are watching right now. Thank you. And if you're watching recorded on this later, more gratitude your way. I think it's working pretty well here. I've got a few more questions. One thing I will ask is if you see in your thing pop up like a minute or a reminder or anything that, hey, let's wrap it up. You guys doing great. No pointing fingers at anybody. Doing fantastic. But try to mind that so we can get through these last few questions and get a full experience here tonight. With that, let's transition to technology. And one of the things, this isn't the COVID show, but frankly, COVID has exposed a lot of our weaknesses. And I think if I would have asked each of you the question before COVID, do we have broadband issues in West Virginia? You all would have had a resounding yes. What my question is to this group, and it's Clay, Josh, Rob, and Richard. With virtual schooling that we have, I mean, these things are laid bare for all of us to see, our challenges in broadband. How are we going to fix this? Clearly, the commercial interest, it's not there. And in a state like West Virginia, so we're likely going to, maybe we aren't, maybe you'll tell me we don't need to rely on the government to have some kind of plan. But as we see money doled out, we've seen this happen in the 90s with Telecommunication Act. We saw it in the early 2000s with BTOP, and that money was given directly to Verizon, who then sold to Frontier, and then here we are with what we have. And now we've got more money that's coming our way. How are we going to do it right this time to get West Virginians broadband and connected?
Alex, I'll be happy to take this question. This is my forte as an electrical and computer engineer. I have a lot of experience. I've built hundreds of miles designed and built hundreds of miles of broadband. So there's a couple different things. Right now, obviously, the governor and the bipartisan group that has led the recent announcement for the reverse auction through RDOF in that program, and that's over $700 million. And as those companies begin to bid on these extensions, they will be able to have the best price to be able to get the citizens of West Virginia broadband. One of the other policies that I think that we need to improve on is our dig once policy. So much infrastructure goes into the state of West Virginia that you see a road or a sewer line or a water line. There's the ability to pair those together with a conduit at a low cost to make sure that we're only breaking ground once and you don't pave a road and then dig it up again just to put a line underneath of it. And so I think that's another thing. The last one would be the power zone. And that's an area that I think working with the utility companies, we can lower the overall cost of extension into broadband and get it there now. I know there's future technologies coming, Elon Musk, but we need to get our citizens this broadband capability now. And we have the opportunity, and that's one of the things, one of my key initiatives.
I have to say I agree with that, Clay. And also I'd like to add that I think there was the contract awarded to a local company here for around $35 million to extend some of the broadband. I think we need more contracts like that, more projects. I spoke with the gentleman a couple of weeks ago about a possible cell tower in a location in the western part of the state, up in Wetzel County, or northern part rather. And I think these things are out there. I think that the money's out there. We just need to go with it. We can always use that to help as far as safety concerns and education as well.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else on that group, from that group? Oh, Richard, yep, go right ahead, buddy.
Well, Frontier did come in and they spent over $100 million, and we were actually a test site for all the states because we're a rural, isolated state. And we have extended a lot of the lines but the original premise that we worked on is the larger metropolitan areas that had the large population would probably get the service first, which is the way it has turned out. In the rural, isolated areas that also need the broadband service has been looked over, and we have to have a better plan on how we attack it the same way we did with the highways. Our highways have a priority. They publish that the priority in the websites on where the roads have been ranked, and we do not have a ranking of our broadband in the state of West Virginia. And there's some areas that we have overlooked, and they're not all the rural areas, but mainly they are. And we need a ranking that will help people identify communities and areas that need it the most, that have the most people, that have the greatest needs and wants.
Great. Anyone else?
Hey, and I'll have to, I completely agree with what everybody's saying here, and it's nice to hear everybody having similar ideas, and seems like we all want to work together here to make this thing happen, because this is one of the main issues in West Virginia that really bugs me to death. But I like what Clay said as well, because if we put a water line in or a sewer line, or we're running a buried electric lines or whichever it may be, let's conduit this up. Let's get some broadband in here so we're only digging one time. Not everybody lives in the city. We have citizens of West Virginia and local to Harrison and Taylor counties that live out as well. Personally, my office is 2 miles from downtown Lost Creek, and our internet is out nonstop, and it drives me crazy. That's something that needs addressed ASAP. I'm personally a father of 3, and I'm homeschooling. I have helped homeschooling from a lot of people, but the people that live out and about and aren't in the city, it's tough to get their homeschooling done, and I feel for them. It's hard to juggle as a parent and as a, you know, a working adult. But it's one of those things to where this is a necessity that needs taken care of ASAP. And I'll work together with everyone, both sides of the aisle, on all issues to get all things done for the better of West Virginia.
Great. And this question is to Ryan, Laura, Ben, and Danny. And this question came from our constituents in talking about digital rights. So technology, there are billion and trillion dollar companies that make money every day as we sleep or as we eat and as we drive and as we do the things we do, all on our data and our activities. And right now, there are some states that are moving towards digital rights bills to make it legal and make it maybe illegal to use my data or your data for profit without me having either some say in that, to be able to opt out of that and be forgotten, or potentially even to enrich myself on my data. If I so choose, they're able to share that. I'd like for you, Ryan, Laura, Ben, and Danny, if you so choose, to answer how you feel about that. And is that something on your mind in terms of what you might bring to the legislature if you're elected?
I mean, I'll go ahead and respond to that. It's something I've noticed. I've seen other legislation popping up in other states. I tend to follow along a little bit, you know, with NCSL and SLC with legislation passing in other states. Those are basically both conferences of legislators that, you know, that talk from different states about ideas that may be in common. But I think, you know, it's a tough issue. I think it's something you have to hear both sides. Absolutely. I think that right now, a lot of these companies are sort of hiding it in the fine details, that what data they're collecting and what they're using it for, who they're selling it to. And I think one of the ideas that I've seen out there is sort of an opt-in rather than an opt-out for data sharing, data collection. That's something that, I mean, we definitely have to talk about and you know, see all the possibilities of, you know, the bad things, I guess, that could happen with this data. But it is our citizens' private information that, you know, that's theirs to decide whether or not they're sharing with people or not.
Yeah, I completely agree with Danny. You know, people deserve a level of privacy, and I think an opt-in would be an excellent way to make sure. I like the way you mentioned they hide it in the fine details, because it's hidden and it's hard to find. So I would definitely fight to make sure that the citizens of West Virginia have a say in their digital rights and how their information is used.
I agree with those two on specific individuals. I mean, I think we all think of Facebook, and we get to see United States Senate hearings all day, every day about specific projects. I'm going to take this in a little bit different approach. Our Speaker of the House, Roger Hanshaw, has made intellectual property a very important pillar of his administration in the legislature. I think it's because as a member of the Judiciary Committee and chair of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, our committee in the House, I think for businesses, intellectual property for businesses is also a secret that I think they're struggling with retaining companies here. We need to make sure that that information is protected, not only from the business standpoint, but as well as what Ryan and Danny said, trying to figure out what is best for the good of society. But at the same time, all how many are there on us? 10, 8, 9, 10 of us are probably all going to be advertising on Facebook to make sure that our message is heard as well. So how can we allow individuals' privacy to be protected and allow and to embrace technology as a whole? Look, 6 months ago, I'll be honest, I didn't know what Zoom was. Now legislative meetings are happening on Zoom. So it's a turning point that we all need to be worried about now, and it's affecting all of our lives.
I think I'd like to go ahead and add, if I can. I agree with all of you, and I'm really, it's refreshing to hear those comments. For the last several years in discussing school issues, I have had conversations, I know, with Benny and Danny about protecting student privacy. And we have now in the school system, we have passive consent. So opting in, Danny, sounds like a good idea to me. We've talked about that before. And I think that especially now with students at home and they're using different apps to learn, and also with the homeschooling, you can use those different apps to learn, but they also have, you have to read in between the lines. I absolutely am encouraged to hear that this is being discussed, and the intellectual property that you just referred to, Ben, that's encouraging as well.
Perfect. That's this is going to continue to get more and more invasive in our lives as technology is just it's here, guys. So it's going to be here forever. I do have I'd like to change it up just a bit. We have a question in from Facebook. Shannon L is asking, what committee would best fit what you have to offer? And so what I'd like to do is almost kind of lightning round, just really quickly, kind of a one-phrase answer. Obviously, the answer for incumbents, you may already be on committees, but if we can just think through that really quickly, and I'll just zip right down the line. Everybody come off mute, and I'll hit you one at a time. You can tell me what committee you think you would be a best fit for what you have to offer. So let's start up. Clay, we'll start with you.
Transportation and infrastructure.
Perfect. Ben.
Small business entrepreneurship and economic development.
Great. Rob.
Tourism and economic development.
Great. Danny.
The government organization committee.
All right. Josh. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Here, I got you. The energy committee.
Okay, great. Richard.
Finance.
Laura.
Education.
And Ryan.
Education.
Awesome. Great, guys. Thank you for, hey, you guys, if anything, you're flexible, right? So Shannon L., thank you for the question. All right, let's move to the next theme, which is all about unrest. Joyous themes, right, at this point. So it's no surprise. I mean, you can turn on the news at any point and see there's a significant amount of racial issues happening. And at Unleashed Tiger, we actually look at these things more of they're more class issues that then have racial or gender or other ways to separate us ultimately, but this class struggle that goes on in America. This question really is for Clay, Ryan, Laura, and Danny. As a delegate to our state, how are you prepared, or maybe you don't see it as an issue, how are you prepared to help bring these classes together and this class struggle that's happening now, try to alleviate some of the struggles that are really putting a real pressure on some of these that are creating some serious civil unrest?
Alex, I'll go ahead. I think you made a very appropriate comment that it's a class issue. And, in West Virginia, we've been dealing with this for a long time. And, I honestly believe that a lot of it is through the opportunity and the economic development and that ability to get out there. We have some stigma in schools that we need to get back a little bit towards the trades. And I completely believe in that. We have to find those opportunities where people can be successful. I mean, welders right now, although the energy market is down, they still make a very great wage and they're still in demand. And so being able to give the opportunity and making sure that everybody has a path to success is one of the ways that we can achieve that. And that's one of the focuses that I will have.
So I am a part of the West Virginia Can't Wait movement. I've signed the West Virginia Can't Wait pledge. And one of our main core beliefs is that this isn't a left versus right issue. This is a top-down issue. And so, Clay, you're right. I think we've had this struggle for a long time in West Virginia, where we have a lot of people at the bottom, we have a lot of people at the top. And we need politicians who don't see politics just as a game. And that's why I'm running for office. I'm a teacher. I'm a working class citizen. I'm a first generation college graduate. And, my experience is very similar to the people, my neighbors in Northview, my neighbors in Clarksburg. And, our government will be better served if we have more people with this working class background in it. And that's why I'm running for the House of Delegates. We need to make sure that we're infusing money, not at the top, not to people like Jim Justice. I'm sorry, I won't mention his name again, but so no mudslinging. But, we need to make sure that we're investing this money into small businesses, into our schools, so we can have more trade schools, so we can have more entrepreneurs to get off the ground. Yep.
Laura, Danny, either you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and speak about it a little bit. I think there's definitely parts of what both of them said that are absolutely correct. And these issues, I think it's mainly about, being open-minded and learning about things that you've not seen in your life. Just because you're in a certain, mindset and a certain, type of lifestyle, I guess you would say, that's not necessarily how everybody's going with it. So I definitely say that I have learned a lot. I've recently traveled around. I've seen a lot of Southern West Virginia lately that I would have never seen. I'm actually in Mercer County right now at my girlfriend's parents' house. There's absolutely things that can be changed. But I think it does, like Clay said, a lot of it does come down to economics, and education plays a big part in that. We do need to work to improve our educational system. We need to allow for more of those middle skills gaps, training for the middle skills jobs, and then bring in more of those jobs into the state. Big companies like Amazon for manufacturing, those create a large number of jobs, and then provide the ability for some of those employees to, work there a few years, pay for education. Those people can all go forward toward creating their own businesses at some point and being job creators themselves. So I think it's a big opportunity. We just have to diversify the economy in West Virginia, and that will go a long way to helping in our state. And I think with this division, I think our state's a little lucky that we have a little less than some other places, but economically, we're very undiverse, unfortunately.
I'd like to add that I also think that education is key. There's a quote when I was involved with some of the parent groups at school, and I would prepare an agenda at the bottom. One of the favorite quotes that I like to use was from Frederick Douglass, and it was, "Education means emancipation." And so that can mean emancipation from poverty as well. And so education is the absolute key here for me. I think it links into economic opportunity for West Virginia. I think it also is key to one of the solutions for the opioid crisis or the drug crisis. It gives people a feeling of self-worth and understanding and actually becoming human. And my life experience, I've been from one end of the spectrum, and I've, been home with my kids and raised them. And I've seen, the other parts of life. And I think that, we just need to have the economic opportunity and show, in West Virginia, we're also struggling with a cultural problem, a generational problem. And I think some candidates address this in the primary and saying that, we need to feel better about ourselves. West Virginia is a beautiful place. We have good people, strong people, and we just need to be reminded of that.
Great, that's great. Yeah, it's a great segue too. You mentioned the drug epidemic. COVID has taken just about everything from us, but it didn't take that, and it's still here. In fact, maybe even worse in some ways, and certainly some of the stress on our families in that way. So I'm going to ask Josh, Ben, Rob, and Richard to give us your thoughts from a legislative standpoint, how we can take further steps in alleviating the drug issue we have in the state.
Hey, there's a lot of steps that we can take here. Number one, we have to offer more recoveries. We got to have more beds. there's way more things that we can be doing here, especially locally. I know Harrison County has had some major problems, as well as all the counties in the state. But as far as that goes, we need to make more things available. We need to have more resources, more recoveries, more beds, more centers, more counselors. Everybody, it's a 12-step issue here. Everybody can take these steps, and we can all make this work together. When it comes to that, as far as alleviating them, it can go as far as tightening things up with doctors. As far as, you know, there's multiple things that we can do. People have talked about medical marijuana coming into play and lowering the opioid, you know, prescription rate and things of what. There's just a lot of studies that we need to take on here to see what we can do. But the main thing is that we all have to work together from both sides to make West Virginia a better state as far as when it comes to the drug problems.
I'll chime in on that. We've passed numerous bills to try and chip away at making a system that's friendly for everybody. I think part of our jobs as legislators is to communicate with the public. Alex, a lot of people don't know this. We've devoted tens of millions of dollars, probably near $100 million now, into a program called Jobs and Hope. It was a governor's initiative to connect the dots for not only people who have recovery beds, but for those who need help. I'm going to mention this: jobsandhope.wv.gov. If you're somebody who wants to provide help to those folks, maybe you might work at our local Clarksburg mission and you're trying to connect the dots after food and shelter, but also it's a workforce reentry program. I think we all will agree that devoting money from one step to another is crucially important. We can't let you out of a recovery center and expect you to find housing and expect you to go into the workforce immediately. I think that's on us. I think Jobs and Hope has provided a structure and a system that we just need to double down on. And I think it's very encouraging to see the success and the amount of opportunities that are still available. So jobsandhope.wv.gov. Thanks.
I think I'd have to agree with both those gentlemen there. But the funding has to have a revenue stream that is constant so that we can provide those opportunities for those folks out there. There's a lot of them in trouble. We need to help them.
All right. Anyone else on that? Richard, you got a comment on that?
Yes, I agree with what is said, especially about the recovery beds. What we've avoided for the last 8 or 10 years is for a long-term recovery. We put people in the system and they have a hard time getting into the system, first of all. And you'll look in a newspaper anytime in Harrison County, and drug rehabilitation is very difficult, and it's a long period of time. The last couple of years, we pay for short time, and we need long-term beds. And what I'm talking about is it's a 6-month. It's not a 2-week, 5-week, 8-week, 12-week. We've tried that for 10 years, maybe 15, and long-term recovery has been the key. But one of the things that you and I and everybody in this panel realizes, the state has not allocated very many resources for long-term recovery. In fact, I don't know if the number of beds for long-term has increased since a long period of time. And until we look at it in those terms and attack it in that fashion, we're going to have a lot of people that have problems, and it's a very difficult position that we're in, and we just have to spend a little bit more money trying to get people away from the drug situation that they've come into. Now, the part about the jobs, you and I know that once people have been identified, it's very difficult for them to get a job. And we're trying to make it easier so that we offer more jobs for them to be successful in. And once they start working, we've found that it does have a tremendous impact. And that's part of what we were talking about in the past about diversifying the income or diversifying the economy. We have a lot of trades and skills that everybody in the state needs, and we have to emphasize them more in these type of programs.
All right, perfect. All right, guys, we are just about out of time. So what I want to do is another kind of lightning round, if you will. I need to come up with a better phrase for that, maybe. But what I'd like to do, look, in the midst of COVID, right, in 2020, all the local challenges, the divisive politics at the national level, and certainly trickles down into the state, single issue voting, difficulty of finding good information, all that. Why in the world are you running for office now? Why jump into the fray? And the second part of that question is what's so okay, you want to jump in. What number one, what's your one outcome? If you're going to be elected, if you're fortunate enough to be elected and the 48th district puts you in this seat, what is it you want to accomplish? What outcome are you, the number one outcome you're looking to accomplish as you get in here? So with that, I'm going to kind of run down through a lightning round here. Let's start with Josh.
Hey guys, the reason I'm running here is to bring the communities back together of Harrison and Taylor counties and here in West Virginia. I want to be a small part of this. I have children here that are very young. I want to be a part of their future. I want to be a part of everybody's future here, all the youth in West Virginia. So that's why I'm running.
Great. Laura.
Well, I'm running because I've been concerned about the encroachment on our liberty and our freedom. And I've been concerned that our state motto of Montani Semper Liberi, mountaineers are always free, may go by the wayside. And I have 3 children, and it's for them and their generation. And I support the sacredness and the sanctity of life and the Second Amendment. And I've watched what's been going on in neighboring state of Virginia, and I decided to do this.
Great. Ben?
Alex, Tom Hart allowed me to be in downtown Grafton this evening here at Espresso Yourself Coffee Shop. This is why I'm running. I'm running so that entrepreneurs like Tom have an opportunity to run their own small business. I like to have a seat at the table. I think that's why, you see a lot of young people here. We want a seat at the table to represent our generation. Our friends are leaving. I'd like to think less people are leaving now than when I signed up for office 4 years ago, but my friends are leaving and they're struggling to stay. But our opportunities to diversify our economy and to make it a more friendly place to raise a family in small town USA is what keeps me encouraged.
Awesome. Thanks. Rob?
Well, as long as I can remember, my family's been in public service, and I would just like to, continue that on. I'd just like to see my grandchildren be raised around here and the community's better so that I don't have to travel to visit them, and anything I can do to help small business as well, because that's what's the foundation of our country, I believe.
Perfect. Richard?
I've been a teacher and a coach for over 50 years in Harrison County, and I see a lot of the problems that the average person doesn't come in contact. Everything from grandparents raising kids to foster parent programs. I firmly believe that we do have to diversify the economy and attack these problems that have affected the state, especially the drug problem, alcohol, tobacco abuse, just the child abuse problem. So we have a lot of problems that I feel that if we look at them in a systematic way, the same way that I said about the internet, we have to prioritize where we can do the most good with the most amount of money that is available to spend on those programs. I've been a servant and a teacher, like I said, and I've been a legislator since 2002. I enjoy it. People are good, we're hardworking, And I just feel like that it's a good time to become a House of Delegate member of the state of West Virginia.
Great, thanks. Danny.
Well, I mean, I think this is one of those questions that, gets asked at almost every candidate forum ever. And, I think all of our answers are pretty much the same, or at least have the main overarching goal and topic is that we love West Virginia. West Virginia is our home, and we want it to be better. We want it to look like other prosperous areas of our country. We want our people to stay. We want our neighborhoods to look beautiful. We want our education system to be better. That's the same reason I started running originally, clear back in 2006. And, it's still my reason for wanting to stay in the House of Delegates. But since that time, I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge about the problems that West Virginia has, a lot of the inner workings of government, how inefficient it really is, and what the steps we need to take to make it more efficient, more secure, technologically, and better just in general for West Virginians. We've made some steps toward that. Our economy's improving. Tourism obviously in West Virginia is greatly improving the last few years, and that's helping many things. But we still have a long way to go in education and broadband technology, and small things just like fixing a lot of the issues with occupational licensing in West Virginia. And that's something I've worked on for quite a few years with other states and other members, and cutting some of those regulations for occupational licensure, just allowing people to get back to work. That's the main thing that I think we need to work on going forward. So thank you.
Great. Ryan? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. I'm running for House of Delegates because West Virginia is worth fighting for. Our people have been forgotten by the government and by both parties, left and right. And it's time that we put working people back as our priority to change the course of our state. If I had to pick one outcome, it would be education. Education will unlock the prosperity of our state. We'll be able to bring better jobs. We'll be able to start small businesses. We'll attract people here, and we'll keep people here.
Great. And Clay.
Well, Alex, thank you. I know everybody here, I'm sure, appreciates you hosting this evening. 20 years ago, my wife and I chose to stay in West Virginia. It was important for us that we raise our kids like we were raised, around family and with West Virginia values. And so I decided to put my name on the ballot for two reasons. First, my kids have told me that they don't feel like they have that choice. They can't make that same choice that we made. That was the first reason. Second reason is I've grown tired of working on economic development projects in Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. It's jobs. It's jobs that West Virginians could do. And I believe West Virginians can do them better. And so I want my family, your family, to have a choice. That's why I decided to run. That's going to be the outcome I'm shooting for, is jobs. And that's why I'm asking for your vote in this election.
All right, great. I got to tell you, candidates, thank you so much for coming on tonight. And this was really great. And I got to tell you, if you live in the 48th district, you've got an embarrassment of riches in terms of folks to represent you. Hopefully this was valuable to you in your search for who you're going to vote for, whether you're doing the absentee ballot, going early voting, waiting till election day, whatever it is. Make it a thoughtful vote, make it a considerable vote. It is a representative republic, and it is incumbent on us as the republic to elect the right representatives that we need to move our nation, and in this case our district and our state, forward. So thank you to all that are interested in listening, either live with us today or certainly recorded later. And again, thank you to all the candidates. I will say this on behalf of all the candidates: anytime I ask any of them, online, offline, or whatever, what's the one thing you want from the constituents? It's call me, talk to me, let me know what you want. So if you've heard something here tonight, you want to know more about what somebody thinks about this or that issue, ring them up, email them, text them, whatever it is. I'm sure that all their information's out there on their websites or other ways to get a hold of them. Please be an active and an informed voter. So with that said, thank you all, and we'll see you during election.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Alex.